What's up, y'all? This is RandR. This is man C.O.K.E. And we're here to react to a Muslim student reacts challenges of Ravi Zacharias.
And we're eating Cheerios.
Zacharias. Yes, because we're hungry, so we couldn't wait to do it after we ate. But without further ado, we'll get this started.
Yes, sir.
I'm not a Christian, I'm a Muslim, so pardon my questions. The Ten Commandments you talked about certainly provide a very enlightening spiritual guide for people. But as a society, compared to the Mosaic Law, where it has a single law for every single thing you're ever bound to do, I see that really the laws that Jesus came with, the code of life he came up with.
Sorry, code of?
The code of life that he's supposed to have given us is not sufficient to envelop society like Jewish law or Islamic law. How do you think Christianity can fix the world if the absolute law that you demand is not present in Christianity itself? You can't love thy neighbor and love thy father and just bring it on from there.
Okay, good question. And did you say you're not a Christian but you're a Muslim?
I'm a Muslim.
Okay, I appreciate that, sir, and thanks for asking. I think it's a wonderful question, and I can see actually why you would even raise it, because when you look at the Islamic code, everything is enjoined, everything is described, from your diet and your fasting and all of that. It is all enshrined in and all the way up to the Sharia and the code and the law, etc. Jesus stood in stark distinction to both Islam and in the way the Judaizers were using the law. He never came to destroy the law. He made that very clear.
Yes,
he came to establish it.
What
he reminded us is that by the keeping of the law, no flesh can be justified. This is a fundamental difference between Islam and Christianity. That in my faith, I can be absolutely certain that I am forgiven, not because I am righteous.
Amen.
For you, it would be purely the will of Allah, whether He chooses to grant you that salvation or not. But don't ever forget that what Jesus actually said was transcend the written law in any way. For example, He says, you say, you shall not commit adultery. He said, I'm telling you, if you look upon a woman with lust, you have already committed adultery in your heart. He has already established that now on a higher plane. He says, if you hate somebody, you've already committed murder. If anything, he establishes it on a higher plane than either the Quranic law or the Judaizers would have used. So let me take you to what I think is a classic response to your question. If you take the Sermon on the Mount and see what Jesus said is the characteristic of the child of the kingdom, you've got there inscripted not only what the moral boundaries are, it's not my law, by the way, what the moral boundaries are, but how only by the change of heart and beginning with the poverty of spirit can you come into that relationship and live as a child of the kingdom. For example, when he took the whole story of the Good Samaritan, the person questioning Jesus said, who is my neighbor? Did you notice? Do you remember how Jesus answered that? He basically answered it not by telling him who his neighbor was, but to whom are you being neighborly? He said it again on a higher plane. So I think the difference between, say, what you are raising for me and what the Christian faith would give to you is that the Christian faith is not devoid of a moral law. It sets it on a higher plane and reminds you and me that we cannot keep it in and of ourselves. Jesus described the moral law as a mirror. You can look at a mirror and find out that your face is dirty, but you don't go and rub your face on the mirror to clean it. So you go to something other than the mirror, and the law, says the Apostle Paul, is a schoolmaster. If anybody knew what the moral law was, it was the Apostle Paul. And he found out at the end that it was only the grace of God and the mercy of God that was able to give him salvation. It doesn't deny the law, it affirms it and shows ultimately the impossibility for you and me to keep it. So it does not destroy the law, it shows that he alone completely fulfilled it. No one else ever did.
Amen.
One more, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. Jesus spoke in a lot of parables, which in my culture, in my world, because I'm Arab, we're accustomed to that.
Yes,
but
sir.
parables are too abstract. You can't take that to the bank. Parables are not the law. But, you know, all the thing that you just mentioned is the reason why there are 1,001 churches and denominations around.
Okay.
The Christianity is not united, and I think that's...
You know, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying, but you're forgetting an awful lot too. There are scores of Islamic sects as well. Scores of them. The first 3 caliphs were murdered, assassinated. Why? 2 of them were by counter-Muslims. So you've got the Seveners and the Twelvers and the Ismailis and the Ahmadiyas and the Shiites and the Sunnis and the and on and on and on. So let me finish. So my point to you is, your point is well taken if you understand one thing, that ultimately you and I are not Christians by the denomination or the abomination we belong to. We are Christians by becoming followers of the... what's your name, sir?
My name is Hani.
And I'll be glad after the meeting to stay and talk to you. I saw you here, and I appreciate your questions. You know, this is so interesting, born and raised in India. I used to hear this all the time. This is what I also said. What's the Methodist? What's this? You know, the story was told about a man who said Jesus healed 2 people with mud, of eyesight. With one he used mud, and with the other he didn't use mud. He said, thank God it didn't happen in our day. We'd have 2 denominations, the Muddites and the anti-Muddites. You know,
the Muddites and the
it's true.
anti-Muddites.
There are many of these sects. But you know what is so beautiful about that possibility? Unity does not have to be uniformity. What ultimately defines whether you're a Christian or not is not what denomination you belong to, but whether you know Jesus Christ in your heart as well. And that you can come to know too. But thanks very much, and we'll see you after the meeting. Yeah.
I'll give my input.
He gave you the word.
Like, I'm going to give you my input, and then maybe you have some questions I can address as well. What I love is how when you use the law, a lot of people don't realize. It's kind of like, perfect example. What if I just told you right now you have cancer?
I won't believe it.
Exactly, right? Because you're like,
How do you know?
how do you know that I have cancer? But if I were to walk down through you and show the symptoms of what cancer is, gave you some tests, some blood work, basically showing evidence based on the results of what proves that you have cancer, you'd be like, oh snap, I really do have cancer, right? Or in another way, if I just said, here, I gave you the cure of cancer, here, you need to use it real quick, you'd be like, well, I don't have cancer. I mean, you'd be glad that I gave you a cure for cancer, but it's like, I don't need it. Your mindset is going to be thinking, I don't need it. So since your mindset is thinking, I don't need the cure for cancer, I'm just going to give it to someone who does, right? But in that sense, that's why I love the way he presented it to the Muslim, because in his mindset, he's thinking, okay, in order to cure my cancer, so to speak, I can do it myself or I'm good. You have the mindset thinking that I don't have the cancer or that I can work it myself. No, I need the medicine, and the only medicine that is going to be Jesus. So with that being said, people may know that's the medicine, but are you going to take it?
No.
And see, that's where the problem comes in.
Because
So,
you don't know what it is. Because he can be lying.
but my main point is that I'm equivalent that medicine back to the cross. A lot of people don't want to accept Jesus or be obedient and repent and believe in the gospel because of most reasons. It can be pride, all kinds of things. and be pride because they don't want to. They know that there are things in their life that are going to have to be. That's basically it's a cost. They know some of these things in their life that will be taken away. I mean, that not taken away, but that they know that they would have to let go. But at the same time, not realizing that when you put in your faith in the gospel, it's God that does the work in you. Same thing with the medicine. You give you the medicine, it's going to do the work to cure you.
So I don't need cancer.
Correct, exactly. And so since we all, how can I say it? We all born into sin, that's basically like the result of it. I mean, like since we are born into sin, we're in desperate need of a Savior because we can't keep the works of the law like he was just saying. And then on top of that, like he was explaining, like, you know, when they said y'all should not murder, but when you hating on someone like your neighbor, like, you know, you probably don't even wish that they just be, probably not that you want to kill them, but you be thinking, man, I really hope some bad happened to me, man, because he just get on my nerves, or she get on my nerves. I just hope she get ran over by a car, or just something like that. Just simple things like that, you've already committed murder in your heart because you're thinking that. Your heart consists of your thoughts, your words, your deeds, and your motives. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, I actually like, I usually watch a little bit of his stuff, but I'm gonna watch a little bit more now after seeing this video. I'm gonna watch a little bit more. I'm trying to see if you have some questions on it or anything. I should have got more like you did because I killed mine. I get some after the reaction. I get some more. But yeah, so you good, I guess? You need input?
I'm good.
You good with you? All right. Well, hope y'all enjoyed this reaction. Y'all post that comments in the comment section below. Even though y'all inputting what y'all intake is concerning the law, or maybe y'all also have any questions that maybe I can address, or we can try, we'll pray on it and we'll try to find answers together. And one thing I'm learning is not just answers, questions need to be answered, but people need to be answered. Because, like, even though there's maybe a specific question, some questions are not going to get comfort or confirmation to some people versus what they would to others. But with that being said, we got this piece.
Well, read it. Read it. Read it.
So dead!
And that's real to believe in. So dear Captain America, when the real guy drops his hammer, your shield will be no defense. And iron sharpens iron, so it's irony to me to see that only the blood of the Son of Man can now sustain what iron can't. So much for Iron Man, don't let that stop your marvel. Worship's up in our arsenal, steady fire till Zion lands.